Good afternoon and welcome to the University of Melbourne's first online infrastructure webinar for 2024. We're excited that you're joining us today. My name is Mark Allan. I'm an architect and urban planner and a PhD candidate in the Faculty of Engineering and IT at the University of Melbourne. My research interests are on topic today, and they're around sustainable people-centric urban regeneration projects and precincts. My career includes time in local government and state government and also in industry. And my particular expertise is in looking at sustainable outcomes with a focus on people and communities. It is my pleasure to be your MC for the webinar discussion this afternoon. And today's topic is Blueprints to BIM, building a carbon neutral campus. I'd like to start today's event by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we are presenting this webinar, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I also respectfully acknowledge Aboriginal people who may be joining us today. So this is the 8th in our infrastructure webinar series, which began in 2021 and has been investigating sustainability and resilience and looking at the key technologies that the University of Melbourne can bring with collaborators and partners. And what we would like to do is to learn more about our research. And in fact, if you are interested in learning more about our research and innovative programs, or to view any of the earlier webinars, please visit our website, which we will hope that will bring you a vast quantity of information. I need to point out that we are recording this event, and so the video of this webinar will be placed on the university's Faculty of Engineering and IT webpage, so please look out for that as well. So a bit about today's topic: from improving socio-ecological outcomes to sustainability, decarbonisation and state-of-the-art learning, our aspirations for the campus of the future are ambitious and they are diverse. The University of Melbourne last week released its annual sustainability report for 2023 as part of the university's Sustainability Strategy 2030. This strategy sets out actions and policies to embed sustainable practice in all facets of the university's operations across 5 spheres: place, community, education, discovery, and global actions, building capacity for climate health and action across the Indo-Pacific region. I am pleased to take from the 2023 annual report that the University of Melbourne is on track to be carbon neutral by 2025, with net greenhouse gas emissions equal to 0, and the ambitious target to be climate positive by 2030, the university making positive contributions to the environment at that time. The university has achieved net zero emissions in 2023 for the second consecutive year from electricity, balancing the university's production of greenhouse gases with that removed from the atmosphere. The University of Melbourne has also implemented a range of initiatives to further improve sustainability of campus-based operations. The value of digital technology to optimise and improve the planning, design and construction of built environments through sustainable operations and the building of landscapes and buildings cannot be realised without a fit-for-purpose data about our campus and our people, a digital culture to create, collect and share data, and easily usable technology to derive and use insights to design, implement and test sustainable solutions. So this event this afternoon will bring together a group of panelists to discuss the technology, the people and processes we need for a successful, sustainable and digital campus, and in order to enable a sustainable and carbon neutral future. So before we proceed with the panel discussion, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for joining us today. You are welcome to interact by typing questions for our speakers in the Q&A box on the right-hand side of the screen. We have a couple of questions that have been submitted via the registration form, and should our conversation spark further thoughts or questions, I really encourage you to write those questions and to put our panel to work. And please click the like button if you see a question that you would like to see answered as well. We'll try and address as many of the questions as we can. But let's get going by introducing our panelists. So first up, it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Abbas Rajabardafan. He is the Associate Dean, Sustainability at the Faculty of Engineering and Information Technology, an internationally recognised scholar, geospatial engineer and active leader in land administration, system modernisation, sustainability and resilience. He serves as a director of the university's Centre for Spatial Data Infrastructures and Land Administration. Professor Rajabardafan leads the digital twin platform for smart cities and urban analytics and is a board member of the prestigious United Nations Academic Network for Global Geospatial Information Management and assists UN member states in their quest for sustainability. He is also a member of the United Nations International Advisory Committee for UN Global Geospatial Knowledge and Innovation and the Innovation Centre. So welcome to you, Abbas.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of the panel, Mark. Thank you.
Wonderful. Our next panelist is Jade Germanis, and he leads the digital estate program within business services, optimising the University of Melbourne's portfolio of buildings, infrastructure and asset data, leading towards a digital by default approach. Enabling next generation space and facilities management. This month, the Digital Estate Program received a global recognition with an International Gold Award in the Global Facilities Management Awards of Excellence. So congratulations, Jade. The program recognised the exemplary leadership in innovation in digitalisation of the university's estate. So welcome to you, Jade.
Thank you for having me on the panel.
Fantastic. Next up, Associate Professor Chris Candido. She directs the SHE Lab, Sustainable and Healthy Environments Lab within the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning. She leads a program of applied and interdisciplinary research aimed at leveraging end user experience to improve design and performance of spaces across typologies and scales. An expert in post-occupancy evaluation. Christina's work has also been used to inform changes in the design and operational practices around the world. She is a member of the International Well Building Institute, Global Research Advisory Board, and the Well Faculty, and she received in 2023 the Change Maker Award. So thank you for joining us, Christina.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Our final speaker, but not our, I should say, I'll just say our final speaker that I'd like to introduce you today is Sarah Eggleston, who has 20 years experience leading digital infrastructure programs for some of the largest city projects in Australia and beyond. With a PhD in geomatics, her expertise lies in the design and delivery of systems for digital twin infrastructure, spatial planning, analysing movement and behaviour. She focuses on the data and digital infrastructure required to inform digital twins and information systems, including population dynamics, transport planning, and urban planning application. She brings knowledge of how data can be extracted and transformed and accessed and used in every project. So welcome, Sarah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mark.
Well, now we're at the point where we have our panel discussion. So as I alluded, we are really encouraging you to add your questions. But in order to kick off, what I will do is I'll ask the first question of Abbas, and I'd love to learn, and I'm sure the participants would love to learn what the Centre for Spatial Data Infrastructures and Land Administration are doing and how they use digital information and digital twins in particular to improve the design and use of our campuses and precincts.
Thank you very much, Mark. Our research center has actually been established back 2001. So it is now 23 years in operation, and it is one of the research partner, a strategic research partner with a number of major authorities globally, and also, of course, with our university. But we have been working on modernization of the land and also location intelligence, that how information, and in particular geospatial, can assist with our operation, with our processes, with our activities, as well as also innovating series of new models and new techniques and new way of dealing with our information that we are capturing. As part of the work over the last about 10 years, we have been more focusing on digital twin, and in particular, advancing the building information model BIM to be integrated with our techniques that we can better respond to the market needs, and in particular from the urban system, above ground, underground, and so on that. Our center is excited to collaborate with a wide range of campus stakeholders to continue to enable the campus to be designed and operated more sustainably. And in that context, our digital twin platform is to support the data lifecycle, from capturing crowdsource and sensor data, and also delivering insight to stakeholders and a better experience to students. We have already partnered with the University Property Campus, and also so far we have managed to supporting the conversions of physical space and more than 60 major buildings and also entities of our university to be digitalized and to be integrated into the system as part of the digital twin. Some of our past uses of digital information and digital twin to improve the design and use of our campuses are, for example, related to the virtual open day. Back in 2020, our center advanced the Melbourne University Digital Twin Campus, and then as part of that, also the center enabled the virtual open day by scanning and generating 3D models of selected buildings and laboratories to facilitate the visitors to our campus. And in fact, because we were facing, and we were part of that during the COVID-19, so therefore that was perhaps the major enabler to our university to facilitate the interactions and providing the sense of being inside the campus, but without needing to be out of or being in the reality. So therefore, you've been actually part of the system, and the system actually also provided the 3D models created with a unique digital representation of the classrooms, for example, labs, learning facilities, as well as also the way that we facilitated the interactions that people actually, again, in the virtual environment, but being into that type of system and interact with that. Another dimension that I can touch on has been with the system that university has developed. They called at the time Spaceman. And I'm sure our colleague will be touch on that, but the universities managed complex property portfolios and extensive data in various systems and platforms. So therefore, as part of that Spaceman system, which we collaborated with our chancellery, an online platform to enhance the facilities management, asset management, and also space utilization for its 1.2 billion capital work programs. So I think that was again another also contribution that we have made, and very proud that to be part of that significant and advanced work that our university and our chancellery, as well as also our campus property colleagues, actually have been working on, to visualizing geospatial data from multi-source that is providing a holistic view for decision making. In addition, accurate, for example, space utilization measurements, which always actually, again, in some areas perhaps becoming difficult, but at the same time, we also provided some techniques, as well as also the way that we respond to the challenges. And also with regard to utilization of series of live data streams coming through from the sensor networks, from IoT, as well as also Wi-Fi data accuracy and data being stored into the different type of databases that being used in that sense. So therefore, in general sense, I mean, in supporting of integrating a major data sources, including geospatial information, live data from the IoT, from indoor and outdoor, historical Wi-Fi data, as well as also real-time energy data or internal university data as well, to innovating features of every perhaps analytics and the life into the system, to making from the space management, from the also clean energy or the air qualities, and also from the situational awareness that would facilitate the safeties across that. So therefore, I think that's a part of some of the work that we have conducted, and also building a dashboard for, advocating the transparency of how university is supporting also the sustainability and indicator, and in particular as part of our university, sustainability plan 2030. Let me stop here and see how other, perhaps, the dimension that I can bring, that how our research team and also the work that the system that actually perhaps contributing into this to facilitate the informed decision process across the world. Thank you.
That's fantastic, Professor. So thank you so much for that. Virtual open days, space labs, live data, but importantly, the centre placing people right at the heart of those activities. So thank you for that.
Absolute pleasure.
I might now ask Jade Germanis a question. So going from the global and international perspective that Professor Rajabardafan mentioned, can you perhaps talk about some of the key opportunities and challenges for implementing and governing an effective BIM digital estate strategy for an organisation as complex as the University of Melbourne?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, it's a question where it really talks to the value of data-driven decision making. So the University of Melbourne, we have 1.1 million square metres of space with over 600 buildings, and to collate and coordinate, curate that data into a standardised format to deliver outcomes and outputs based on data-driven decision making is a big ask. It's a big feat. And what I'd like to say is that data standards, people and process, and platforms, working with your supply chain is really the best way to start your journey with ingesting that information to support your decision making. The university's largest campus is Parkville, but we have some fantastic opportunities down at South Bank and Werribee. We have complex buildings on a smaller scale that we can work with our supply chain partners to standardise our data processes coming into the university through our project supply chain and ingest them into our IT systems. And that way we can actually build ourselves an estate strategy that delivers information seamlessly into the university. A digital estate strategy goes beyond just data itself. It talks to building partnerships and relationships with your supply chain. How do you support your supply chain to ensure the data that you are receiving is in good order, it is the quality that you require, and it actually contains the fields and data sets that you require to make decisions? Because we don't want to collect data for data's sake, and we don't also want to make an arduous process for our supply chain partners. Many supply chain partners are digitally mature, they have great systems and platforms, but others need our support. So to have a strategy, a digital estate strategy, where we can work with our project supply chain on the kinds of information we're requesting, from asset registers to taxonomies where the data can actually be filtered and benchmarked and analysed, is really important. And to have that built into your contracts so you know where your supply chain stands and where we stand at the university, and we can work together on delivering that information. Without a digital estate strategy, you effectively are trying to clean data, collect data from multi-siloed approaches and from multi-siloed supply chain contractors, some which are not using the taxonomies that would be recognised in the university processes or for facilities management reasons. So to have a digital strategy that is crystal clear around what would a complex handover project look like. Would it have a BIM model? Would it have an asset register? And what's the taxonomy to use to ingest that data into our platforms in order to deliver decision-driven data?
Fantastic.
That was
Thanks
helpful.
for that, Jade. And clearly at the centre of much of the work that you do, it's about those partnerships with those key suppliers and service providers. So thank you for that. And you've mentioned high quality data and crystal clear processes, which is a great lead into to the next question that I have, which is for Christina. So Christina, can you give some examples of how end user data can be leveraged to inform operational and other practices in buildings themselves?
Of course, I can talk about that all day, but I only have 5 minutes to go here. Having led end user surveys in over 250 buildings in 5 continents, I have really seen firsthand how critical it is to leverage this type of information if we are committed to lifting the performance up across the built environment. This, of course, was only possible because of partnerships with the industry. As an academic, of course, I do depend on people being able to open windows up and giving me access to people to actually do the research that I do and get, that important data that I do to do my work. But also having people considering buildings as living labs that live and breathe and actually need to respond to change constantly on day-to-day basis, on annual basis, or decades kind of basis. Data is really important to challenge our baselines. But I think this is only possible if we're not afraid of these baselines, and we, of course, not afraid of engaging people, because getting energy consumption data from buildings is something that building owners are not scared of. But when I start asking if people are hot or cold in the buildings, then that's when things start to get hairy. So a few examples that I can bring to the conversation and open up to the audience to ask questions. If we think purely from an operational side perspective, we can really bridge the gap between energy consumption in buildings, indoor environmental quality, and space efficiency. So our research has demonstrated that if we actually leverage end user perception and experiences in buildings, in offices that are open plan and have activity-based working implemented, very much like what we see at Melbourne Connect, we could actually reduce the overall energy consumption for a commercial building in Sydney down to about 10%. Now, that is really big when you think about operational carbon that is coming just to same machine, same air conditioning, same people, same fit out, same everything, and you're just getting the air conditioning to actually respond to where people are sitting in an office. That is actually quite significant. Another example is if you actually try to really be able to have buildings responding to extreme weather events, which, let's face it, that's really just, everyday basis now, unfortunately. What we have seen is our public health response relies a lot in the idea that buildings are safe and will always be safe for us to go back to, even if we're going through bushfire events. What we found through our research in the SHE Lab is that real data for commercial buildings in Canberra, particulate matter was 25 times what it was recommended, but that was 3 days actually, after the peak of the bushfire in Canberra. Why is 3 days important? Because we are told it was safe to go out, and of course people were back in the offices, but that wasn't the peak of the event. It was 3 days after that, meaning the HVAC system wasn't really able to flash out and be able to deliver safe indoors. Now, I'm talking about high-tide air conditioning, sophisticated BMS systems here in a certified office in Canberra. Imagine how it was in your building, in your residential building, which doesn't have any of that, and gadgets and systems, let alone double glazing on your facade. So I think leverage data to actually keep us safe, it's something that is very much needed. Finally, if you look post-COVID, of course, ways of working, ways of learning, we really need to leverage end user data to be able to respond to the challenges that we have in the way that we manage space, but also the way that people want to use the space. So our research has shown, for example, field work conducted Melbourne Connect, that biophilic design principles that are implemented in offices can actually attract people to be using spaces within the office. What we found at Melbourne Connect is that people was actually seeking these spaces that had more greenery in there 3 times more often than any other space, and they were staying 5 times longer, which actually has demonstrated a boost in utilization for those floors that we studied, around 25%. Now, if you are a building owner out there trying to figure out what we're going to do with these offices sitting empty, here's an idea for you. Try to actually understand what people want. Finally, what we have also been seeing is the change in what people want in terms of the office space. I think health and well-being is front of mind to all of us. And the baseline that we had before the pandemic is really not going to cut. So what we're seeing is that well-certified workplaces in Australia, they actually delivering 50% increase in productivity and health when it comes to workplaces located within WAPAC. So these offices are actually outperforming the data set when it comes to spaces people actually want to be in. I'm happy to take any questions. These are some of the takeaway notes that I have for today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Christina. So that's marvelous. Work is a very important part of our lives, and spending time at work should be in environments that enrich us and motivate us to do our best. And you've made some very excellent comments about the wonderful workspaces that are at Melbourne Connect, which is where I'm doing this webinar from. So thank you for those thoughts, and we'll come back to you on some of those. My next question is to Seren, and I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit, given that you've had experience working at the university's Centre for Spatial Data Infrastructures and Land Administration and research at Oran, and now in industry at Arup. Where do you see the collaboration and or connections between industry, research and institutions like the University of Melbourne?
Excellent. Thank you for the question, Mark. And I guess just to give you a little bit of background in terms of my role. So I lead our data science and digital team here at Arup in Melbourne. And so we're a collective team of data scientists and BIM modelers, geospatial modelers. And what the types of things that our clients are asking for is really around quality and safety. First and foremost, and those attributes in the context of climate change and the transition that we need to make to address the emerging effects of that. So I've heard quite a bit, I can resonate with what Christina was saying around having buildings that are safe to go back to. So Arup being a traditionally an engineering company, we work to make sure that they are safe and that the quality of data is there to support that. We're also working a lot on emerging technology. So it is quite a constrained environment at the moment. And so people want to know, how do we use digital technologies and data to do more? So around the asset maintenance and understanding how do we increase the longevity of our assets over time, and to do that within the face of climate change. In terms of your question around how do we collaborate and how do I see that intersection between industry and academia and government, I think it really is using those multidisciplinary skills and having really genuine collaborations. So we've been working with the University of Melbourne on pedestrian modelling and understanding how people are interacting with street environments, and particularly as we have new infrastructure at the university with the metro opening soon. So what sort of changes does that and influences does that have on people, and how do we help to operate the environment in a 24/7 setting? So what does nighttime look like as opposed to daytime? So being involved in that research and then being able to help craft solutions that help with some of those emerging problems. So yeah, they're just some of the ways that we're seeing that connection between industry, government and academia coming together.
Well, fantastic. Listen, I can't let you go without asking you a question about Melbourne Innovation District, and certainly in former roles that I've had. Can you just talk a little bit about collaboration on digital twins? You know, what are the key barriers, but more importantly, what are those sort of main opportunities, you know, for those sorts of precincts, you know, across multiple organisations?
Great, thanks, Mark. So we've been working with the Melbourne Innovation District in a number of ways. First and foremost is to understand how we can use technology and data in those environments. So we recently ran a hackathon with the City of Melbourne, with the University of Melbourne, and we invited people in and released a bunch of new data. So I think open data is really important in these sort of precinct environments, because you need to give people access, and when that is sort of locked down to one institution, it can be really challenging to innovate. So we opened up a number of new data sets, and we had people come in and be mentored and supported through using those data sets to create new innovation. And then we've also been taking a deep dive into the opening of metro and looking and pedestrian planning, and looking at how open data and digital twins can be utilised to understand that space and how change is occurring. So we're actually living through quite a large change in the city at the moment as that new infrastructure is opened, and so we have an opportunity to really monitor it and to also respond collectively as either the university working with the city. And some of the challenges that we have, I think, are around data sharing still. It's been an area that I've been quite passionate about for many years, is how do we share and connect data to the right people. And so I think we still have work to do in that space, but we also have amazing technology now, and so we have opportunities there to leverage that and to partner closely.
Oh, that's fantastic. It makes me feel very optimistic, and you're absolutely right. Capital cities right across Australia, and Melbourne is one of them, have experienced a lot of change. So if we can use data, you know, to make better decisions, and as you say, look to monitor and guide strategically improvements in our city, that's a very good outcome. So thank you for that. And I can see there are questions coming through from the audience, which are most welcome. So keep them coming. We did have a pre-registrant question, at least, that really asked the question about how, starting at the beginning of a university campus BIM or digital journey, what recommendations would you make to ensure that we're putting the right foot forward in that outset? So, Jade, I might ask you to kick off on that one, and then if there are other panelists that would like to tackle that one, I'd love to hear that too.
So if you repeat the question, is it what are the early steps or the first footsteps?
Yeah, starting from the beginning of a university campus BIM journey, what are the recommendations that you would make to ensure we're putting our right foot forward from the outset?
Well, from my point of view, my journey started 17 years ago at the university, and we were significantly a paper-based environment, a paper estate, as it were, not a digital estate. And then we transitioned to PDFs and CAD. So what I felt was one of the most important thing at the start was getting the foundations right with your data structure, understanding what data sets do you actually need. So at that particular time, we were most interested in our square meterage and our CAD drawings to make sure that we have all of our spaces and all of our properties across the entire portfolio, including our hospitals and clinical sites, which we did an enormous amount of work driving all over regional Victoria to confirm, do we have space in this building? Are the university staff in there? And what is there a tenancy agreement in place or a relationship agreement? And getting those data standards in a place where then we can start to understand at scale what our footprint looks like. So we started our journey with obviously visiting and measuring up sites, requesting data where it was available, whether it was available in PDF, CAD, and we'd either trace that drawing or we would basically draw it from scratch and ensure we have a very robust taxonomy. So every single CAD drawing has a consistent approach in how we name our doors, windows, floors, etc. So we're building that bulk data set to start to move forward. So back then we had 250,000 square metres of space, and today we use the same taxonomy for 1.1 million square metres, which has now enabled our indoor wayfinding. Having those early days of those data standards of our CAD has enabled smart campus technologies like our digital wayfinding, and even our in particular our smart campus platform, which brings in all kinds of system integrations like CMX wireless. It has IoT sensors due to that rigorous structure of the data.
Fantastic. Listen, I'll stick with you because I've got a question that I think is in your area of expertise, and it is, what role can predictive maintenance play in managing the assets in old buildings, and how can sensor data contribute to this process?
Thank you for that question. I love it when people ask questions about old buildings because we are a historical campus. We don't have a BIM model for every single building. We have a few BIM models, but most of them are very old historic buildings, nearing the end of life in some cases. So to have, there's new technologies coming on board that we talked about, like digital scanning. We can scan our plant rooms, we can scan our historic buildings and tag our assets using a very standardized industry practice taxonomy. And the benefit of that is, one use case, for example, is this question, which is predictive maintenance. So predictive maintenance can work hand in hand with our master plan and our estate plan to know when our buildings are ready for renewal and those facilities, those significant assets that are nearing end of life before they hit failure point, and saying, what does the master plan tell us about this precinct or this building? Should we be replacing or should we be repairing that asset? And having that taxonomy built into the structures to tell us and alert us predictively, yes, that chiller needs to be replaced in 12 months. Oh, by the way, this building is on the roadmap for the master plan that needs to be consolidated. So I think it works really well in alignment with our master plans, but also just in general from a cost point of view and a replacement point of view, you're saving enormous amounts of effort and time and money by having that foresight with your predictive analytics. So we're working towards that tagging of assets and the taxonomies to deliver those insights. It's a great question.
Yeah. And Christina, can I ask you perhaps to share your views on a similar theme? So in the research that you do, you know, how do we maintain and how do we get older buildings in particular to be at the level that occupants and tenants and building owners are demanding?
Yeah, I find that it's critical to be able to triangulate things. So you need to have the data to make hard decisions around, for example, you know, HVAC and base building provisions, because some of them you have to replace. But then going a step further to understand, you know, if that fit out, for example, is not fit for purpose for that point in time, can you actually propose a new use for that particular space? I think there is, of course, a lot of opportunity. There is a lot of hype around this topic post-pandemic because we have so many offices sitting empty. But I think if you have the right data, you can also start combining these with end-user experience to say, well, maybe this particular fit out or this particular HVAC is okay, but is actually not meeting the user needs for this particular population. Then, well, can we actually attract a different type of demographic? And that's when kind of this type of mixed use becomes quite interesting and attractive to really make the most of the infrastructure that exists. And then, of course, you have to go through all this process before you can decide that you're going to demolish or do something else that is a little bit more dramatic and extreme. But I think these days there are so much opportunity to use the data to make these decisions step by step, and then really lead to a point where you're really challenging how it's going to look like in 10 years' time. And that bringing all these challenges together really relies on the types of data that you have.
Fantastic. No, thank you for that. It's really, really critical issues about how we retrofit and reuse existing assets. So we have another question, and I'm going to look at you, Professor Abbas Rajabarafan. The question is, are we using sensor data to help in monitoring and improving? It says specifically indoor air quality at the university, but you might even take a broader perspective on the use of sensor data.
Thank you. That's an excellent question, Mark. Perhaps, before I respond to this, which the answer is yes, but I go back to what you have raised, and Jade has already responded on this. We have always using our campus as our laboratory. So therefore, anything that we are investigating and applying that are the first area that we will be trying to addressing or responding to the challenges or the new opportunity that can be adopted into our operation that can be the first perhaps type of capabilities or services to our students and our clients or our campuses. So therefore, we have been working on those areas very closely as partnering with our colleagues like Jade Portfolios and the rest of the faculties, collaborating with other researchers and also industries. And again, we can, by bringing together those kind of collaboration, we can bring the new advancement and contribution to the knowledge and of course to the ways that we can better servicing or improving our efficiency and effectiveness of our operations. Going back to your question or the question that came through related to the sensor data and also to improve the indoor air quality, yes, we have developed a number of units, sensors in the collaboration with the other researchers across our faculties and also wider university that we actually adopted series of tools that we deployed across major buildings, particularly the building that the Melbourne Connect is one of the smartest, and again, coming back to the sustainability perspective, indoor, the management assets as well as also air qualities and also energy efficiencies and so on on that. So the sensors that we deployed across the buildings, measuring those kind of air qualities, as well as also this is the live system and it keep come through, and our colleagues from the air quality and also indoor buildings efficiencies, whenever actually in fact I'm also closing the door or I've been inside the room for a bit longer hours and they actually contacting sending that the carbon actually level actually is reached on this. So that's a type of really understanding our system and also better perhaps managing our spaces as well as also providing the quality into that. The other type of dimension also is coming from the IoT perspective. So in addition to air quality type sensors that they're measuring the quality, but at the same time also series of other the sensors that be measuring the series of information like about the energy or about the occupancies that we're using, and also from the movement perspective as well, without identifying the identity of the person. We are also able to 3D monitoring the movement, and this is actually in fact brings new opportunities that while we're managing the space and also aware from the situational awareness, from the safety perspectives to OH&S perspective, as well as also some new capabilities that we have actually developed to assisting, for example, hospitals or the areas to some of the domains like the fall preventions and others, again by adopting series of these sensors and the mix of those with the cameras and others that would be integrated into the system. So therefore, in general sense, having a strong data backbone to all of our operations, I think that's really the bottom line, that how we operate, how we can improve our perhaps management, and also how we can manage our assets, and also in particular with the perhaps the old assets or the buildings that we have, how we can first of all record those situations, and then when we are trying to improving the efficiencies on those, when we're going to upgrading our buildings, then we know that which area we should really address and how we can really improve those areas. So therefore, when we can make those kind of environment and then tracking that one through our digital twin, that would really facilitate better for forecasting, for simulating, and also making or mitigating the risk, but at the same time improving the experience of anyone interacting with those kind of spaces, from indoor or outdoor.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating, Professor, and I certainly know, and it was touched on earlier, that changes are occurring in our cities and precincts. Just the value that good pedestrian movement data and just understanding the patterns and looking for how people organise themselves in space is just so important to a sustainable future. Now, we have a question around community behaviour, and I'll take this to mean community engagement and stakeholder involvement. So, Sarah, I might ask you this question first up, and others might have some contributions that they might like to make as well. But the question is, are there models that can influence or monitor community behaviour to achieve carbon neutrality goals? If so, what are the main driving factors? You want to take a lead on that one?
Yeah, sure. I'll have a go at it. So, I mean, I think people are really responsive when you do give them information. And so that ability for us to use data to provide information to people and so they can actually make change. A couple of projects that we're working on at the moment, and they're quite tactile in some ways. So we've been working with community groups and actually showing them tactile maps where they can actually place themselves in the context of that situation. And so by providing it in that way that people understand the information, then it gives them a greater lead into what they can do next to, I guess, shape their behaviour. And then another one we've been working on is around nighttime safety. And so we work with our lighting designers, and they actually take people out on the streets with torches at night and collect data around their perceptions of safety and how that actually makes them feel. And so when you're situated in that environment, you get a much different response, and you're able to collect that information much more readily, and also then put interventions in place. So lighting could be one of those examples where often we think brighter light is going to make people feel safer, but actually it isn't necessarily the case. It's the sort of the right lighting and the right urban environment when people actually have line of sight or and not obscured in a particular way. So that's one example we've been working on, and I also do research and understand from places like Copenhagen, where they actually addressed lighting early on in their transition to net zero, and got really, really great results. So there are a couple of examples that we've worked on.
No, that's fantastic. So just keeping on that theme, Jade, how does the university work with stakeholders? I would imagine you have some very informed stakeholders that are also very engaged in the sort of change that might be occurring at the university. Do you want to perhaps just touch on how you use data in those interactions?
Yeah, so for me, one of the things I love about working at the university is that our stakeholders are absolutely informed, as you say, and we actually bring them along the journey with our state portal. So our state portal has been built over the last 8 years, which enables all academics, all staff to see their data, the facilities that they live and do their fantastic research in through the estate portal. And that's through the digitisation of the estate. So we publish out of all of our drawings onto the platform. And so our faculty clients can dive in, measure the floor plans, see the kinds of space, the quality of that space. We even have virtual walkthroughs where we've scanned 3D walkthroughs of plant rooms and teaching spaces, etc. So that really enables our clients to start planning and work on the development, the capital project developments. And so they're really informed and empowered with this sense of data around how can they better improve utilisation or the efficiency of the space, or optimize the embodied energy of the materials that are already there. So part of my role is to ensure the digital estate strategy is moving with the times. So as technology changes and progresses, we have now Matterport cameras, thanks to Abbas's team and CSD-ILA. They have scanned the fantastic Dookie campus for us, which is a World Heritage Campus, I think it is, if that's right. And Abbas's team have used drones and internal external cameras to then publish back to our state portal for our clients to really understand how those spaces are being used and the materiality of those spaces when they're being assessed for refurbishment or potential redevelopment. So we put data front and center and we put it out there. So we want all of our staff and our researchers and our clients to see the data and work with the data, and our external contractors as well, for that matter. So it's a very exciting place to be these days.
Fantastic, Susan. Thanks for that. And I might direct the next question to Abbas, and Chris, I'd also be very interested in your views on this. The question is around how the university connects asset management and design groups so that monitoring data can be used to improve future designs. But Abbas, Jade gave a bit of a lead in to the work that the Centre of Spatial Data Infrastructures and Land Administration does, and some of the ways that you use technology to work with communities and stakeholders. But do you want to talk a little bit about that nexus between asset management and design?
Yes, thank you very much, Mark, for the question, and I really appreciate, Jade, again, with your trust and also opportunity that you're providing to us to contribute into our campuses and that. What we are actually, in fact, investigating based on the scanning that we are doing with the major complex, for example, the plans, and also another dimension that we have a research hub, which we are collaborating with 18 industry and also with 4 universities. And this is about the monitoring, health monitoring of infrastructure and forecasting and improving the processes in that sense for protection and maintenance. So as part of that type of project, and also our campus here, we started actually adopting some AI solutions and also identifications of different part of the assets. So it's not only the individual assets that is moving, but also when we look at to the fineries or we look at to the plants, I mean, for those kind of mix of different pieces of equipments that there are integrated in that type of a space, we started by adopting geolocation and identification of those special, for example, the items and features. Now, by leveraging off this information, we can predict, we can also identify it, and then as a behavior or as a perhaps an experience of some of those taps, for example, or some of the wires or some of the pipelines, we now started predicting some of the things that can be perhaps requires maintenance, or we can predict some of those potential damage and also bringing that to the design, or some of the areas that we have identified that by incorporating those new requirements into the design, it would actually perhaps mitigating some of the risks that are already identified through these processes. So therefore, by creating that type of a spaces and also having the fully digital ability to deal and interact with those assets and identifying those and also integrating the location information into the every pieces of that, it would actually facilitate the management of the assets, but also giving us opportunity to identifying the challenge or any type of, for example, the issues that we are facing, to be perhaps forecasting those and then trying to improving the design that we can minimize those kind of risks. So therefore, that's and currently we are working with a major project actually with the industry in oil and gas, for example, which is actually stems from what we have done in our campus with our lab and also with our plants, for example. But now we are adopting some of those into the oil and gas environment and improving the assets, as well as also into the asset owners like the water industry, for example. We are working with Southeast Water, for example, with series of assets that they have, and identifying again some of the model and also adopting those into the management of those assets, as well as also predictions. So therefore, the latest, again, the model with the adaptation of AI and some of the machine learning techniques to improving our operations and also management of those spaces.
No, that's fantastic, Abbas, and I certainly love the idea of predicting outcomes and forecasting future design. So, Chris, could you perhaps give us your perspective from the Living Lab work that you're involved with?
Yeah, my working within universities, not necessarily just University of Melbourne, has been a lot around establishing living labs, which can be, a prototype space that has been created when people moving from private offices to activity-based work. Imagine academics working without offices, terrible, right? All the way to actually trying to understand at a portfolio level if those buildings are actually still fit for purpose for the realities of that particular campus. So a lot of the work around living labs is really trying to understand how people engaging with that particular infrastructure, and it can be at the level of the HVAC provisions, base building, or fit out, but also really trying to understand, and that is particularly important now post COVID, who is actually using the space. So if we take the university buildings, we have this is split between permanent residents of our buildings, which is staff and professional staff, academic staff. But you also have the non-residents, so people that are there for different reasons, which can be our students or it can be actually our community. And what has been quite fascinating by having living labs established across our campus is really to being able to identify assets that are, by being open up to the community, you actually have that sense of vibrancy. And by doing that, the permanent inhabitants of the building actually want to be there. So you won't be able to just get that sense of experience of spaces through just utilization data, for example. You know where they're sitting, you know where they're going, or swipe card data. You actually have to be there to be able to understand how people engaging with the space infrastructure and each other, and what is the type of vibe that you're delivering within that, which is a far more intangible kind of aspect of the research that we do. So I think when you start really, I think the conversation today is really about all the different types of data points that you really need to have to make sure we're not only delivering fit for purpose buildings now, but in the future, and how we're going to harness and integrate all, which is really the challenge, is integrate all of these data points through different lenses to really try to push the performance of our portfolio now and in the future. And I think that's really where the value of Living Lab comes to play, because it adds to that conversation.
Fantastic. Now, listen, we're coming to the end of our discussion, but there's a couple of technical questions. So, Stephen, I might direct them your way and see whether I can combine them. The first question was about the level of maturity in using point cloud utilization in current BIM processes, and maybe just to end with some comments about how can we use BIM to improve aspects like fire safety, and there'll no doubt be other preservation of life or unexpected disaster situations. So can you perhaps just share a couple of thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly. So we're really interested in BIM from the point of view of using it over the life cycle of a project through design, construction, maintenance, and operations, and how to get that maximum efficiency, because we find that, and research shows that, if you don't start well, often projects will overrun, and that will have lengthy time delays down the track. So you're better off doing things properly up front, although it may be more expensive, and then not having those follow-on issues down the track. In terms of point clouds, I mean, we're utilizing them all the time for a range of things. We're using them for automatically extracting features of the building. So that could be anything from the lighting, the exit signs, etc. So you go in, scan, and then be able to use those all the time. So, I mean, the range of maturity really depends on how the process that you're going through and the equipment that you're using up
Fantastic.
front.
Listen,
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Sue. And for those projects that won't run over time, I've got to bring it to a close. So I really apologise for cutting you off there. But I just wanted to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, which I apologise for, but there's been some fantastic questions. But on behalf of the infrastructure team at the University of Melbourne, I'd like to thank our panel for their contribution and the discussion. So thank you again, Abbas, Jade, Christina and Seren. I'd also like to thank the audience for what were some really invigorating questions, and really appreciate those. If you're interested in continuing the conversation, we'd love to collect your information and include you in future communications about these infrastructure seminars. So please click on the EOI button, the expression of interest button beneath the stream. We would really, really appreciate your input post-event, and there's a survey for you to complete as well, which is at the bottom of the video, and we value your feedback and your contribution to help us shape the future of the infrastructure webinar series. So thank you also to Taylor Gray and to Alice Kaminis from the University of Melbourne for putting so much work into preparing for today. But I thank you each and every one, and wish you a safe and happy day. So thank you very much. Good afternoon.